Hey, mathematicians. All right, so this is student book page 55, more equivalent fractions. We're going to continue our work with fractions today. I'm going to try to make this video a lot shorter than yesterday. Sorry about that. But I think this one, I think this page, you'll be able to find the equivalent fractions pretty easily, I'm hoping. So number one says fill in the tables to show equivalent fractions. You can use the clocks to help you if you want to. So I'm going to use everything here. I'm going to show you what the equivalent fraction looks like within the clock, as well as talk about what it looks like just to find the multiple that we can use to go up for the equivalent fraction. All right, so the equivalent fractions for 5/6. So what they want you to do is, I'm going to use blue here, cut this fraction into sixths first, because that will show us, and I don't know if you remember, but if we cut this clock into sixths, we go from 1, 2, 4, 6. These markers here are the times of the clock. So if we go 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, I just put the numbers so we could remind ourselves what those are. So this clock is cut into sixths. And if I shade in 5 of our parts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that represents 5/6. Now, what would that look like, let's say, in twelfths? Let's go to twelfths. So what you want to do is cut the clock into sixths again. Okay, so you're at sixths, and then a twelfth is half of a sixth. So we're going to cut all of these into twelfths. So we're going to cut each of these little sections into half. And if you start with the 1, you can go all the way through the dot to the next line. So you just kind of match up the lines to the lines, or the ticks to the ticks. Now you should have 12 equal parts, or about like what Mr. Mac has, 12 equal parts. And again, we're going to shade in the exact same thing we did here with 5/6, but now we're going to shade in these little sections for twelfths. And remember, we're going to go all the way to the 10th mark here. That's why I put these little number reminders. So I'm going to go to the 10th one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so now I have 10 out of 12 shaded in. So 5/6 is equivalent to 10/12. And we know that because if I double the 5 and I double the 6, 5 times 2 is 10, and 6 times 2 is 12. Remember, whatever you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. Whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. All right, so B is 3/4. So first we want to cut our first clock into fourths. So simply cut down and then put a line across, make it equal fourths, and then we're going to shade in how many? 3. Good. 1, 2, 3. So we have 3/4 here. Now, what should we cut in? I think we could go twelfths again. We could go eighths, but that's a little trickier, but we can go twelfths. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut into fourths again. And remember how we did twelfths up here? We're going to do the same thing. So really, we're just going to make lines all the way for each tick mark. And Mr. Mac just likes to make a line all the way through just to save time. There we go. Now I have my clock cut into twelfths, and I'm going to go shade all the way. This is the 9 o'clock time. So that's the 9. So we're going to shade in all the way to 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There we go. So I have 9 out of 12 shaded in. So 3/4 is equivalent to 9/12. And how do we find that with our lowest common multiple, or our multiple across? Well, if we multiply both the numerator and denominator by 3, we get 9/12. Okay, so in this one, they want us to do 2 equivalent fractions. So first we're going to cut this first clock into thirds. And remember, let's see, we're going to go to the 4 and the 8th tick. So the 4 and the 8. So 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock. That's cut into thirds, and now we're going to shade in one of those thirds. Okay, so let's do, what do you think, sixths? Okay, let's do sixths. Whoops, why did that do that? Sorry about that. So we're going to cut it into thirds again, and a sixth is half of a third. So we're going to cut each of these little slices into half. So we're going to go cut to the 2 o'clock, the 6 o'clock, and what is that? The 10 o'clock. Just like we did up here for number 1, or for letter A. Okay, so if I shade in all the way to the 4, remember we're going to the 4, 1, so it's going to be right here. So we're going to shade in 2 of these sections. So when I cut it into sixths, 1/3 is equivalent to 2 sixths. Now let's do twelfths. Let's do twelfths on this one. So I'm going to cut mine. You can cut yours however you want, but I'm going to cut mine into sixths again. And then I'm going to cut them into twelfths. So I'm just going to draw my lines to every tick mark to get to twelfths. And remember, we're still going to the 4 o'clock part. So I'm going to shade in twelfths. I'm going to shade in 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 out of 12 in my twelfths. So this clock over here is out of twelfths. This clock here is out of sixths. And this clock here is out of thirds. 1/3, 2 sixths, and 4 twelfths. And then we can see that by going up with our common multiples. So 1 times 2 is 6. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. And if I go up again, 2 times 2 is 4. 6 times 2 is 12. Whatever we do at the bottom, got to do the top. Okay, so that's equivalent fractions for clock model. Now we're going to rewrite each problem using equivalent fractions with a common denominator and then find the sum. So we're going to write these. I would like you to rewrite these going up and down. It's Mr. Mac's crazy way, but it just makes sense to me and it gives us more room. So what we're going to do is to find the common denominator. I don't know if you remember this from last time, but we're going to multiply the 2 denominators together to find a common denominator for these. So what is 3 times 4? 12. Good. So our new denominator is 12. We're going to change 1/3 into twelfths and 1/4 into twelfths. All right, so how did we get from 3 to 12? What did we multiply by? Well, if you remember, we multiplied by 4. Whatever you do to the bottom, you got to do the top. So since I multiplied the 3 by 4, I'm going to multiply the 1 by 4. 1 times 4 is 4. So 1/3 changes to 4 twelfths, which we remember which was up here. 1/3 is equivalent to 4 twelfths. All right. Now 1/4, how do we change the 4 to a 12? Well, we multiplied by 3. So whatever you do to the bottom, got to do to the top. So we're going to multiply the numerator by 3, which is 1 times 3. And that's 3. Now we can easily add the 2 fractions together. 4 plus 3 is, good, 7, and the twelfths stays the same. Okay, 3/4 plus 5 sixths. Last one, you're doing great. Hang in there. 3/4 plus 5 sixths. I said this one would be shorter, and I lied, of course. So this one, we can either multiply 4 times 6 and get our common denominator, or we can find the lowest common multiple of 4 and 6. So let's look at that real quick. So the multiples of 4, we can go 4, 8, 12. We can keep going to 16. And then if I look at the multiples of 6, remember I'm looking at my denominators, is 6, 12, 18. Ooh, look at that. I see a multiple that's lower than 24. and it's 12. So let's change our denominators again. Let's do the same thing to twelfths. And you could use 24 as well. You could say 4 times 6 is 24 and do 24. You just have to simplify the answer later, but that's totally fine too. All right, so how did we get from 4 to 12 here? Well, we multiplied by 3. Never do the bottom, you guess it do to the top. So 4 times 3 is 12, 3 times 3 is 9. Then how did we get from 6 to 12? We multiplied by 6 times 2 is 12. Never do the bottom, you guess do the top. 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, so now we can add our fractions together because we have a common denominator. 9 plus 10 is 19. Denominator stays the same. 19 twelfths is an improper fraction. We need to make that a mixed number. So we ask ourselves, the question is, what is 19 divided by 12? And the way we figure that out is, how many times can 12 go into 19 without going over? 1, just one time. So 12 times 1 is 12, and then how many is left over? Or how much is it to count up to 19 or subtract 19 minus 12? So 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 7. Good. So that's our numerator. And our denominator always stays the same, and we don't need to simplify 7 twelfths. That's it. 1 and 7 twelfths. Hope that was helpful. And I hope you enjoy equivalent fractions. Oh, and if you made it this far, Mr. McIntosh's, let's see, favorite dessert is tiramisu. Put that in the comments. You get bonus points. Tiramisu.